Anyway, I'm here to talk to you about a subject a lot less happy, unfortunately. So I've got the feel-good book of the year here, Death by China, and we've got a film that's just as cheerful. But this is a really serious subject that I'd like to talk to you about, and I'm now going to subject you to death by PowerPoint to go over that. This is an issue that I really look at as a nonpartisan issue. This is an American issue. And oddly enough, I can have a discussion about this subject here, and I could go to a union hall and have this discussion and get an equally positive response. And when I see that happen, I know that American policy is seriously out of sync with the wishes of the American people. And I want to talk about why that is and hopefully what we can do about it. So, how many of you have been to China? Okay. If you've been to China, you've probably been to Shanghai and Beijing, most of you, either on tour or business, and you probably haven't seen a lot other of China, but you've seen this, the incredible Bird's Nest Olympic arena, the incredible towers that CCTV and other Chinese state-owned industries have built, the whatever it is that is. And, you know, there's a lot of dynamic and crazy architecture going on in these places. And you think, wow, these people, these communist folks with their state centrally controlled, rigid authority, repress free speech sort of thing, that's great. They can get things done. And I hear that from a lot of people. Sadly, sometimes they're conservatives. What I want to point out is this is other people's money. This chart here shows you foreign direct investment inflows, which is essentially your 401k and money from American investment bankers and corporations into various countries in the world. It's all going to one place, okay? So to borrow from our president, they didn't build this. You did, okay? So when you get impressed with this, you either have to say to yourself, I honestly believe that National Socialism is a more effective way to run a country, or something fishy's going on. And I'm here to tell you something fishy's going on. So, meanwhile, back at the ranch, to quote Gene, this is Detroit, okay? There is a relationship here. These are not disconnected events. Yes, we have serious problems in this country that people in this room are very aware about and are working to fix, and we have done ourselves ill. But just because you're a cancer patient doesn't mean you don't have to deal with the guy chasing you with a gun. And we've got a guy chasing us with a gun when it comes to our economy. Back when the China engagement policy started, Henry Kissinger met with Zhou Enlai and had this interesting conversation with Mr. Kissinger documented in his book. And Zhou said to him, perhaps it is in the national character of Americans to be taken in by those who seem kind and mild. Any of us who have been to China and had that big dinner at the table with the Lazy Susan and all the food and all the alcohol you could possibly consume have been subjected to this theory. And Kissinger said yes, and Zhou said, but the world is not so simple. He told us how it worked back in 1972, and whenever you see an American politician or business leader dealing with China, I want you to think about this quote. Now, one of the things China is really good at is PR. It's the thing they do best. And one of the things they love to do is repeat the big lie phrase. They learned this from Hitler and Goebbels. If you say a lie over and over and over again, it's true. So they love saying China's peaceful rise. And I even get a lot of conservative friends that will tell me, oh, China is only a defensive country. They've never fought an aggressive territorial war. We'll tell that to the Mongolians, the East Turkmenistans, the Manchurians, the Tibetans, the Vietnamese. Trust me, it's not true. China has been an aggressive, expanding state for thousands of years. This is China's military budget since 1989 when they rolled over their citizens in Tiananmen Square. Is this a peaceful rise? This is growing much faster than and this is their officially published military growth, by the way, but much faster than their GDP. So if this is a peaceful rise, why do they need to grow their military faster than their economy, which is on steroids? This is what the U.S. government, the Pentagon, says is China's growth rate, twice the rate that their government reports, because, like everything else, they lie about that. China's building a fleet of aircraft carriers, starting with a crappy piece of scrap from the Soviet Union that they picked up by lying about it, claiming that a Hong Kong businessman was going to build a floating casino in Macau so they could get it through the Bosphorus and out of the Black Sea. And then, of course, they took it to the shipyard in Dalian and turned it into a warship designed to terrorize our friends like Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. This is a DF-31A, which is a two-stage solid-fueled mobile road-launched nuclear missile whose only purpose is to incinerate Americans in their beds. They're building more of these and introducing a new DF-41 improved version that can reach all the way out here to the East Coast. This is a nuclear ballistic missile submarine in Hainan Island, in the island at the south of China. They're building a secret James Bond-style underground nuclear submarine base where they can put up to 24 of these into that island so that they can sneak in and out. Why? So American spy satellites can't see them, because the only purpose for this boat is to pull up to the coast of California and incinerate the heartland of America. Unit 61398, has anybody heard of that? This is a division of the People's Liberation Army Signal Corps, and a brilliant group of network engineers, and I really admire them because computer network engineering was my first career, at Mondiant Corporation have revealed that essentially all of the major cyber espionage that's been happening in the last several years against American corporations has originated from this building in the New Pudong district of Shanghai. And I mean all of the serious stuff. They have infected basically every one of the 2,000 largest companies in the United States. The average time that the Chinese ran wild inside the computer networks of these companies was 360 days, a whole year. They've stolen, among other things, and I could go on, Google source code. I testified to Foreign Affairs about this back in March, and I only had a short period of time to put together my estimate of what was the economic cost of this, which is really hard because the Chinese weren't really cooperative with me in listing out what they got. And I came to the conclusion that I thought it was about $300 to $400 billion a year and about 1 million American jobs lost each year. A few months later, Huntsman and a gentleman from the Obama administration put out a joint report, and that was former ambassador and presidential candidate Huntsman, and they concluded that it was $400 billion a year and 1.2 million American jobs lost. 1.2 million Americans are out of work because a division of the People's Liberation Army has intentionally stolen their jobs. Now, another point that I made that I haven't seen connected together is, did you know that the death rate for unemployed Americans is considerably higher than it is for people who have jobs, for a variety of reasons? Frankly, they commit suicide. They're unlikely to have health care. They're depressed. Taking the exaggerated death rate for unemployment and calculating it into this, they're killing 3,000 Americans every year, the People's Liberation Army. Okay? So, are these our friends? Are these our trading partners? The economic impact and the death rate of this every year is essentially equivalent to the impact of 9/11. Every year. Intentional act by a foreign military power against the people of the United States. So, this brings up the question, why are we the bestest buddies? And I found this on the internet, I really like that. Here's Mr. Obama out in Rancho Mirage, California, not far from where I live, having a party with Xi Jinping, the dictator of China, who's building these weapons and pointing at us so that we can have improved relationships and do more trade. This astounds me. I spent that day with friends from Tibet and Vietnam out on the corner, hundreds of degrees heat and desert protesting. There's a reason they had that out there in the summer in California in the desert. So our China engagement policy was supposed to result in political liberalization in China, and I mean liberalization in the good 19th century manner of the word, huge export market for the United States, geopolitical cooperation with China, and progress in human rights on China. How's that working out? Well, let's see. First of all, I argue that they're still commies after all these years. You may have seen this chart, which is the number of independent organizations in China, the red line, versus the number of state-owned organizations, China looks good, right? There are all these vibrant small businesses doing a lot of great things in China. This is true. But what you don't see is this is the average asset size for a small business in China. They stay small because they are merely a tool of the state designed to attract American capital, jobs, and technology, and they are not the goal of the Communist Party. This is the goal of the Communist Party, which is the average asset size of a Chinese state-owned organization. Vast amounts of money are pouring into Chinese heavy industry, which is all controlled by the government, banks, which are all controlled by the Communist Party, and they dominate the economy. There's a popular saying my Chinese friends have these days, which is that the state moves forward and the people retreat. And that's how they view their country for the last 20 years. Politically, it's still a Politburo of 9 Han Chinese men who run this country in a Leninist, Marxist manner, and there is no sign of progress or change. There is no democracy happening. We've had 30 years. If I hear one more person from the Heritage Foundation or American Enterprise Institute or Chamber of Commerce telling me we just need to give them time and they're going to move forward, I think I'm going to puke. 30 years, it's been enough. This is an oath that all Chinese lawyers are required to repeat and swear to, and it was just put in last year. This wasn't done during the Cultural Revolution. I swear to faithfully fulfill the sacred mission of legal workers in socialism with Chinese characteristics. I swear my loyalty to the motherland, to the people, to hold the leadership of the Communist Party of China and the socialist system. This is not political liberalization and a steady progress towards democracy and capitalism. What does this get us? Well, this thing that looks a lot like the growth of the Chinese military is the thing that funds the growth of the Chinese military, which is our trade deficit with China. And I haven't added on, but it actually goes up to about here as of today. Every single year, except for one, the year without a Christmas, our trade deficit has grown. So anytime you hear somebody in your state saying, oh, but we really need to do business with China because I'm selling them all these soybeans or whatever, yeah, that's true. But every year, China sells us a lot more than we sell them. And as a business, America is losing. And every time you hear an economist tell you that trade deficits automatically correct because of David Ricardo and David Hume's laws, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not true when you're dealing with people who cheat. And I want to talk about that. I teach macroeconomics at University of California, Irvine, at Chapman University, and I teach entrepreneurship at University of Southern California. And I have to teach the dominant free trade paradigm. And I have to tell you, both liberals and conservatives, they love that word free. So anything that says free, they're going to attach to. So here's a textbook that I had to use last quarter teaching macroeconomics. And it had this little sidebar that talked about how the Apple iPad is made. It says, Foxconn, which is based in Taiwan, assembles the iPad in factories in Shenzhen and Chengdu, China, and ships them to Apple for sale in the U.S. That's true, I can assure you, I've seen those factories. And then it says, the market coordinates the activity of the many people spread around the world who contribute to the making of the iPad. So it's the efficiencies of the free market system that cause these things to be made in China, just because they're just so much more efficient than American workers. Well, I'm going to show you now how that really works. And by the way, this book was written by Glenn Hubbard, who was the chief economic advisor to President G.W. Bush in his first term. So no flaming liberal. So I went to Foxconn City. I interviewed an executive there. I want you to hear what he has to say about why the iPad is made. And remember this next time some free market economist tries to tell you that if we just get rid of all of our barriers and trade deficits, that some sort of magical economic renaissance will happen. This is why the iPad is made where it is. Oh, audio?
The government even construct the buildings free and provide us for free for I think 3 to 5 years. Wow! Yeah. Wow! And that's because of Apple, not because of Foxconn.
So the government of China built the factory for free, and it pays all their operating expenses, including free electricity, for 3 to 5 years. Now, I admit that if Apple wanted to open up a factory in our town, they might get a tax waiver for a few years, but That's not going to happen. Now, does that hurt Apple? No, it doesn't. Apple is not competing with China. The people who are competing with China are the workers of the United States of America. They're the ones who are getting screwed by the alliance between large corporations, political folks in the United States, and the Communist Chinese government, which drives a system which works really well for less and less people. Here's a company in California called Coda Automotive, and they profess to make a electric car that they claim was made in the United States. I want you to see this interview our film crew did at the LA Auto Show.
We're an all-American, all-electric car company, and we are Coda Automotive. We are based in Los Angeles, and what makes us special is that we are the first all-electric, all-American car company to have a range of 150 miles in a 5-passenger, 4-door sedan. And we're headquartered in downtown LA, where sales, marketing, engineering, finance is all headquartered. And we actually final assemble this car in Benicia, California. And in Benicia, California, up in the Bay Area. And this car will have a U.S. VIN, and we are selling this car in Washington State, Oregon State, California as our launch markets, and we'll be selling it to fleets across the country as well. We are the fastest growing job employer in Los Angeles County. Just Coda XL. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had the mayor of California, the governor of California, Mayor Villaraigosa, our congressmen, our assemblymen, Gil Garcetti,
all
and
Democrats.
many other politicians and stakeholders from the local, political, and government affiliates that were here at our grand opening in downtown Los Angeles. And since this car is final assembled in the U.S. with 35% U.S. content, we believe will have a significant impact on the automotive industry.
So what? Okay, so how many? But you're employing mostly Americans.
Correct.
Okay, then, but how much? What percentage of overseas employees?
We have an American staff that lives overseas that actually works on the car.
Americans
but they're,
moved to
they're
China
United
to build
States
cars.
citizens that are employed by us.
All right, so it's okay. I just don't.
That gets a little kinky. You may not want to put all that in there. 250. There are 250 250 employees right now at Coda Automotive, and that are based out of Los Angeles, California.
And how many overseas?
I'm not sure, but I'll just use the LA number.
I see. Okay. All right. So, but it's what is the it's 65% made?
No.
No, it's 100% made in the U.S.
No. Yeah. So stop filming for a second, so I can tell you. Right.
So this car is actually made by China South Weapons Group, which is a large state-owned arms dealer in China, imported in the United States, where they stick batteries in it that they got from another Chinese company and slap a U.S. VIN on it. They employ a couple hundred people in L.A., and there's a whole bunch of politicians in California would line up to help destroy Detroit in order to get a couple hundred jobs into California. This is a problem we've got in this country that's got to stop. But I ask you, who would support this sort of crazy thing? Well, a little bit after that, there was a U.S.-China Economic and Trade Cooperation Summit in L.A. And first I want to point out the position of the flags here. For those of you that understand flags, the position of the flag on the right is in the position of honor. And again, this happened in Los Angeles. Now, when the Chinese read this sign, they see something different. It doesn't say the U.S.-China Economic Trade Summit. It says the China, Zhong, U.S. May Economic and Trade Cooperation Summit. Every flower at this table is red for a reason, and red and yellow here, not the colors of the United States, the colors of China. China is the dominant partner in this relationship, is the message being sent to the Chinese people. Thank you very much. Who's organizing this? This gentleman here, John Bryson, who President Obama appointed as Commerce Secretary of the United States. You know what he was doing before he was Commerce Secretary of the United States? Running Coda Automotive. He's on the advisory board of Coda Automotive and set up the deal with the Chinese. Then he becomes Commerce Secretary of the United States. How's that work for you? You know, that would be bad enough, but guess who else is on the board at Coda Automotive, an investor? Mac McClarty, President Clinton's chief of staff, and it's a bipartisan sellout, Hank Paulson, Treasury Secretary of the United States, who for years refused to do his job and declare China a currency manipulator when he was required to by law every year. When you have people who are willing for their own personal profit to sell out not only the interests of the American workers, but the national security interest of the United States, you have a serious issue. And I ask you, why is nobody concerned about this? Does anybody know who this is? Wesley Clark, four-star general, probably one of the top military people in the United States, ran for president as a Democrat. Guess what he's doing now? He's prancing around New York City with his new 30-year-old Chinese-born girlfriend, who was born 13 years after he married his wife, who he's dumping. Nobody seems to be concerned about this. Now, I don't know anything much about Shauna May other than that she was born in China and that she must find him very attractive, but I question the issue. Now, Mr. Clark has already endorsed Hillary for 2016 and is positioning himself as a VP candidate, so that should be interesting to watch. When you think about that and you think about what it is Shauna May is doing in the United States, I want you to think about the fact that there have been dozens of Chinese sleeper agents found in the United States, and I guarantee you there are thousands of them in our corporations, in our government, inside NASA, inside our schools. Just one of them, Che Mack, known as Greg from Southern California, was a naturalized U.S. citizen. He took submarine propulsion systems and handed them to the Chinese after being in the United States looking perfectly normal for more than 20 years. Greg Chung, another naturalized U.S. citizen, worked for Rockwell and Boeing, but since 1979 he was working for the Chinese Ministry of State Security, handing over secrets, and he was found with 300,000 pages of classified material in his house, including the complete design plans for the space shuttle. Everybody thought he was a loyal U.S. citizen. So then I ask you, well, why don't we see this news, and why isn't there much talk about the China relationship in our media, particularly in the conservative media? Well, there's Rupert Murdoch and his Chinese 30-year-old wife. What an amazing coincidence. I'm happy to say that that has now descended in an acrimonious divorce, and maybe we can start talking honestly about China in our media. Well, China was supposed to help us out geopolitically. We know where that's going, okay? So we sent them all our money, all our technology, all our jobs, and they're being our friends, right? No. They love Hugo Chavez. They love our friends from Iran, Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. They're always there to help us with North Korea whenever they need a problem to distract us. We are not getting geopolitical cooperation. Why are we paying for it? So sometimes I just sit there and say there must be a bold strategy that the Obama administration or the Bush administration had, and I just don't see it. Frankly, I don't think so. I just don't think we have any strategists. We have a situation where we believe that the word free in free market will automatically make us invulnerable. And so consequently, we let each and every American worker and each and American small company go into competition with a hostile foreign state intent on undermining our industrial capacity, both for the money that it gets them and, more importantly, for the power and national security advantages it gives them, while we sit here blind. Human rights. They were supposed to improve their human rights condition. When I was here last time speaking to the Eagle Forum collegians, and I would really like to thank Phyllis for having me out for that. It was a great event. I also had the opportunity to go out to the mall. It was 100 and something degrees, and stand there in the heat and speak to a Falun Gong rally on the mall. Now, I don't understand the Falun Gong's belief system, but I can tell you that having dealt with them, they are polite people who are trying to restore traditional values to their country that has been essentially raped by a communist system designed to destroy all objective ethics. And along with them, the Tibetan Buddhist, Christian house churches, and the Catholic Church are continually being repressed by the Chinese government. The Chinese government puts people in jail for their political and for their religious beliefs, and in the case of the Falun Gong, they routinely execute them and sell their organs to wealthy foreigners as part of a business plot run by the People's Liberation Army. This is not an improvement in human rights. When I talk to my Chinese friends, since 1989, there's been crackdown after crackdown on the internet, on social media, on the right to organize and protest. There's been no improvement in the issue. So I would like to encourage you, if you take the time to read my book, to find me on my website or on Facebook at Greg W. Autry, or go to American Jobs Alliance to learn more about the fight we're trying to conduct in Congress. And with that, I would love to take questions.